Hello, Booktube. Sorry, I don't mean to bombard you with videos today, but I have a brief response video that I want to make to something that Sarah, the Bookish Knitter, did on a video today that's well worth repeating. I'm glad she did the video. It comes up often on Booktube, comes up often about Booktube, and it can't be stressed enough. So I thought I would just signal boost, as the kids say. I'll leave a link to her video down below, and it's about this alleged competitiveness that Booktube allegedly inspires in other people. When you see the occasional why I'm leaving Booktube or why Booktube stinks or I hate Booktube now or whatever, when you see the occasional video like that, invariably the person who's making the video, in addition to all the other lies they're telling, will lie about the fact that Booktube made them feel competitive about their reading. That I wasn't reading enough. I didn't feel like I was reading enough. It was sucking the joy right out of the experience of reading. And Booktube did that to me. And I've had to make responses over the years saying, no, Booktube doesn't do that to you. If you can find me one example anywhere, one video that you can link me to of someone saying, come on, you got to read more. You're not a real reader. If you can find me one example of that, then I'll eat my hat. But you're not going to be able to, and no one who's made one of those dumb videos has ever done that. They don't exist. We're not that kind of a community. The place where you would be most likely to find that kind of a video would be my own channel, and it's not there. I'm pretty sure that I read more than anyone on Booktube. Never made a competition out of it, wouldn't dream of doing it. As Sarah puts it in her video, if you read one book in a year, one book in 365 days, you've already read more than most people. Most people in the world, and by most, I know statistics might say otherwise. I think that by most, we're talking 95%. Most people in the world not only do not read a book in any given calendar year, but would not read a book if their life depended on it. Literally. If you put a gun to their head and said, I'm going to pull the trigger and blow your head off, or you can read Jane Eyre, they would say, oh, okay. Can I call my family first? But no, I'm not going to read a book, so you might as well kill me. But can I have a little time to put my affairs in order? It wouldn't even be a hesitation. They don't just not read. They don't want to read. And if you look at the latest statistics in several developed countries, it's also true that in greater numbers than ever, they can't read. At an adult level, they're not able to do it. You can't give them... You give them an Edith Wharton novel, they're not going to be able to read it. It's not that they're not going. It's not just that they're not going to want to. They're not going to be able to do it either. You give them a page of, I don't even know, Barbara Pym. Give them a page of Barbara Pym. Tell them to read that single page, and then tell them to take a piece of paper and write a summary of what happened on that page. You can't do it. Most Americans will hide the fact that they can't do it, but they can't do it. They didn't understand what they read and probably can't do a whole lot of the writing either. They carry their literacy with them in an electronic device, and more that makes it easier than ever to get by without anything like that. So the overriding point that when Sarah mentions that is that nobody reads. Nobody. 200,000 people, maybe, in the world. Maybe 600,000 people. Maybe I'd be willing to go maybe as high as 1 million people read in the world. 1 million people out of 10 billion. Maybe. So there are more people who die every day than there are readers in the world. We are well below the fraction of depreciation. It's a tiny, tiny group. So Sarah is right when she says the last thing we should do is be snobby to each other. And she ought to know. She didn't stress it in her video. She doesn't want to, cry me a river for her. But she's a romance reader, a dedicated romance reader. And you dedicated romance readers out there know perfectly well that if any reader is going to be the recipient of snobbery, it's going to be you. I know, not only because for a long time I did that, I was the deliverer of that snobbery, but also because ever since I saw the light, I have seen it delivered to me. Where I'll be having a long conversation, a long bookish conversation with a relative stranger or an acquaintance by name, that sort of thing, not somebody I know well. I'll be having a long bookish conversation with them about very bookish things, about the literature of the Northern Renaissance, which I know really well in 5 languages. And sooner or later, somewhere in the conversation, the bookish conversation will swerve to the fact that I just read a Harlequin romance. And that person will change the way they're talking to me. As if all the things I'd said in the previous hour made no difference at all. The snobbery is that strong. So when Sarah talks about how the last thing in the world we need in what is already a very tiny and diminishing community is snobbery and backbiting, she's right. Now, this is the time of year when you're going to see that. This is the time of year when you're going to be tempted to think like that. This is the time of the year when you may even get some of those dumb Why I Left Booktube videos. I call them dumb because they're not sincere. That I could call them worse words. The word that I'm choosing to call them is dumb. I don't like it when someone turns on a camera and lies. And I've never seen one of those videos that was sincere. At this time of year, as Sarah points out, people are looking back at the year. They're doing stats. They're taking stock. How much did I read? Did I exceed my expectations? Did I meet my Goodreads goal? Etc., etc., etc. I don't have a Goodreads goal myself, and my reading stats, I tend not to say them anymore because, outside of this community of BookTube, so if a stranger comes across this video, they're flat out not going to believe it. They're just going to say that's not physically possible. And inside this community, well, I don't ever tell you should be reading more, but I do joke around. I do have my weird sense of humor. I do joke around about how most of the rest of you read at what I consider to be head injury speed. But that's kidding. I'm joking. You could joke the same thing about me. You could poke fun at me the same way. But even so, there's really no reason to talk about my stats, so I don't do it. I was grateful that in her video, Sarah mentions, for instance, that Ollie at Crimin Ollie is a very fast reader. And she mentioned in her video that I do literally nothing else. It's my job. All I do is read. And that she mentioned those 2 examples, but she mentioned them in the context of how wrong it is to compare these things at all. How wrong it is to measure yourself against the Joneses. Don't do it. Now is when you're going to be tempted to that more than at any other point in the year. Because now is when you're going to get people looking back on their years, actually mentioning their stats, actually toting up how well they did. And you're also going to get year-end book lists showing you all the books you meant to get to and didn't. All the reading you meant to do this year and didn't. All through the year, in addition to poking fun at you for reading at head injury speeds, I also point out how many things you have to do. All of you. You have busy, full lives. You have friends and loved ones. You have community relationships and school and a job and hygiene and pants. You have all sorts of things that pull at your time. It amazes me. I'm full of admiration for the fact that all of you make time to read anyway, despite all of that. I don't know that I would. I've never actually really faced that. So I don't know that I would. I don't know that I wouldn't just wallow in self-pity or doom scrolling, if there's any difference between those 2 things. Whereas all of you make time to read. I think that's incredibly admirable and important to remember at this time of year. So I wanted to underscore Sarah's point. It is my point as well. That this is not a time, there is no good time to beat yourself up about how much or how little you read. Instead, you should continue to take joy in what we do here on BookTube, which is not to talk about how much and how little we read, but to ask each other about it. Oh, I read that author and didn't like them. Can you convince me otherwise? I'd like to add an author that I like. Or, oh, you're dead wrong about that. Can I convince you? Oh, here's what I think. This isn't. Or the different delivery methods of reading, which can be bones of contention. Sarah is a big fan of audiobooks, for instance. I don't listen to audiobooks myself, and I have a quibble about listening to an audiobook being referred to as reading. Just because I think factually, demonically, it's not the same activity, but you're still taking in a book. And it has been a miraculous game changer for a lot of readers. And I didn't see that when I first started BookTube. I very much see it now. But also, there's e-reading, right? Plenty of people don't think e-reading is real reading. And even if you allow for all of that as a means of delivery, there are still plenty of people out there who think, well, Yeah, but you call yourself a reader, but it's romance or it's cozy mysteries. So what? So that's not real reading. Now is the time of year when we should be on our guard against that and not do it. And especially, I don't think we do it here on BookTube, despite all those dumb why I'm leaving BookTube, why BookTube sucks videos. I don't think we do it. But now is also the time when we should be on guard against having it done to us. Now is the time when we should be on guard against videos and stats and stock taking inadvertently, accidentally making us feel like we're slacking off. Some of that is going to be natural anyway. I'm pretty sure I've read more books this year than any of you, and I'm beating myself up about slacking off. I feel the number that I'm going to end the year on could be higher. I think it's natural. Some of it's natural. You always want to do more reading than you end up doing, but it's not healthy. It's not good for a community that's already small and dwindling. So I'll leave a link to Sarah's video down below. I second it completely. Let's not make this into a competition. Instead, let's just enjoy it. So anyway, I'm going to wrap this up for now, but I'll be back. Thank you, BookTube.